everyone. I'm Tara Woodley, President of Break the Silence Against Domestic Violence. And this is our first live broadcast of our podcast, Through the Eyes of Survivors. You can see our previous podcast over on YouTube at the Break the Silence Against Domestic Violence page in YouTube. And today we're here to shatter some of the misconceptions and myths that go along with domestic violence. I'd love to encourage our audience to put your comments in the comment section if you're enjoying the podcast, or if you have any questions, please, share those with us at the end of the podcast. We'll try to answer as many questions as possible from our panelists today. So I'd like to introduce our panelists that we have. I have Carrie Harris. She works here at Break the Silence. She is our social media director. And Gabby Turner, she also is here at Break the Silence as our community organizer. And then Nina Flores, who is a longtime volunteer here with us. And so our topic today is going to be about relationship anxiety. So, relationship anxiety, as far as what it is, the constant worry. You're constantly fretting. You're constantly insecure about everything in your relationship, even when it's going really good. And you've established trust, you've established boundaries, and you communicate well with one another, but there's still like that underlying thing that is just nagging you down in your core that causes you to question yourself, right? And your relationships. So the things we're going to talk about is like, will this last? How, in your relationship, how do you know it's going to last? How do you know that person's right for you? The trauma that goes along with that anxiety and how it's created, and how you can establish, a healthy relationship. So I'd love to just get this topic started with maybe Gabby, if you tell us a little bit about like the types of relationship anxiety you have experienced, and is that, to our audience, is this really normal?
Well, so when I finally separated from my abuser, we were together roughly 19 years on and off, finally separated. It took me about 3 years to get into another relationship. During that time, I was extremely, like you said, I was extremely anxious. Am I doing this right? Am I saying the right things? I professed my love to him and was so like, is he going to reject me? Like, am I doing this too quickly? Well, when he didn't, I fell in this head over heels spiral of love, quite literally fell in love. And it turned out that all of those warning signs and red flags were absolutely correct. I just didn't know the name for them at the time. So I didn't know what I was feeling. I didn't know what was going off inside of me. I didn't even know really what a narcissist was, or, what to expect from a new relationship. I think one of my biggest fears when I did get into that relationship was my ex-husband coming back. Like, it was the fear of, I finally moved on. What is he going to do? I was scared for my life. I was scared for my new boyfriend's life. And now that I'm out of both relationships, I have a complete fear of trusting myself. And I think that this is completely normal for survivors of abuse, especially survivors of abuse who have experienced multiple abusive or manipulative relationships. You lose trust in yourself. And I think that's one of the biggest hurdles that being a survivor is in getting into any new relationship, because this has affected friendships. This has affected business relationships. This has affected me in my relationships across the board, even with my older children. Am I doing the right thing? Am I communicating with them properly? Are they attacking me? Am I attacking them? It's a constant inner battle of what is right and what is wrong, I finally realized that you kind of have to do what's right for you. Like, if there is no right or wrong answer, what feels right to you? And that's my stepping stone I'm at right now.
Right, absolutely. And Nina, what about you? What have you experienced as far as, anxiety within relationships?
For me, it was very much as soon as I left a relationship, so I am a survivor of 10 years. For me, the relationship started when I was very young. I was 13 at the time, so I never had like really a structure. I never saw what a healthy relationship was from home, number one. And number two, just being at 13 and already being in a relationship with your childhood boyfriend at that time, and not having any structure really quickly was abusive and things like that. But I never really had that sense of security, what self-love meant, what self-worth meant. I didn't have any structured environment to any what those things mean. So when you're young and you're looking for love, right, and you have things going on at home that you're not getting love from home, it's really quick and easy to fall into believing that love, right? And then when you're in these kind of relationships, abusive relationships, you are conditioned to believe that abuse is love. So when you're out of that relationship, you really don't understand, you really kind of don't have no understanding of what love means at any level, because for such a long time, in my position, I believe that the man was able to treat the woman how he was, as long as that they were not cheating, that it was fine, and I know in the Hispanic culture where I come from, it was nothing new. So it really took me a lot. I was very, my partner now, he is completely from a completely different culture. He's Turkish. So like for me, just to go outside my cultural bounds, I was already questioning myself. What would people think of me? What would my own culture think of me for going outside, feeling judged? Those were a lot of the insecurities, just number one. And number two, when I left a relationship, I know that I was already kind of conditioned and programmed that no man will love you because you already have children from another man. How do you see that to work? I didn't have nobody in my, which, well, obviously we're coming about that now, speaking in topics like this, but we didn't have anything to show us even what a relationship looks like when you come from an abusive relationship and now starting a new one. And just like Gabby says, you kind of have to really you honestly just experience, and you have to feel what's right, and you're gonna do the wrong things, but you have to do those wrong things in order to find out like what's the right things. And over time you will be able to trust yourself. But there was a lot of questioning that I did. The men that I came across while trying to date and having children, it's how long should I wait to introduce this person to my children? What if
Right.
my children does, should I leave him alone with them? How long should I leave him alone with them? There's a lot of questioning that's involved, not only with yourself, but especially if you have children, as Gabby said. And in my case also, it's not only just about us, but it's about our children. And then trying to find time between you and that new partner. There's a lot of questioning when it comes to it. But I think ultimately that like Gabby said, you will find in time what works for you. And even just having communities like this now, obviously that's more something that's coming of age more now, because we're coming out and speaking our stories. More women will be able to see what a healthy relationship looks like once leaving an abusive relationship and starting a new one.
Absolutely. And Carrie, what about your experiences? Because I know that Carrie, you're in that dating scene right now. So I know that comes with a lot of, when I was dating after my abuse, there comes with a lot of anxiety with that. So can you tell us a little about your experience?
Absolutely. So mine is a little different than everyone else's. My abuse comes mainly from my family. We had a lot of emotional abuse in my family, narcissism, things like that. So a lot of those words stemmed in me since I was a child. It started out in high school. I would just start dating guys that I knew that weren't good for me. And as that started to stem and get worse and worse and worse down the line, I actually ended up going into more emotional abusive relationships at that time too. I'm learning that now, that that's actually more of a trigger in this season than going into the family things that I was into. So a lot of those triggers are, am I doing too much? Am I doing too little? Am I saying enough? Am I saying too little? Things like that, because I've always been told I'm too much. I'm just doing too much at all times. I have to be this perfect person. And that's what I've seen myself in this dating scene, is trying to be more of that perfect person, as well as I've caught myself trying to be more attached. I'm one of those ones that wants to cling. And I'm learning that sometimes you just have to learn to be yourself and step back. Thank God for therapy.
Yes.
Really what has helped me, because to be really transparent, the dating streets are not easy, especially this day and age. But working on myself, as well as realizing what my triggers are, to make myself more, I would say, that make me more anxiety ridden when it comes to dating, is really what has been helping.
Absolutely. I know that for me, it was, I had a severe feeling of it wasn't normal. The things that I was doing and how I was reacting was not normal. It's not normal to look through their phone every time, to see what they're doing and all of that. But, as a survivor and getting help and stuff, I learned this is quite normal. People do. This is normal. You do this. This is the thing. So this is some of the signs. I'm going to go into that, like on personal experience of what you have. So, some of the signs for me in having that kind of anxiety was that every time some little thing was said, I was going through his phone, or I was looking for certain things that I knew that in my previous relationship they were experiencing. So I would actually kind of push buttons a little bit to see if I could get the same reaction, so that I could just throw up my hands and go, I'm out of here, right? So like, Nina, what were the kind of things that you were doing that showed signs of you were experiencing that kind of anxiety in your relationship?
For me, I would say the biggest thing that I struggle with was just more of the trust. And I know, like, to be very honest, like something that came up recently was me being able to be vulnerable, and be able to speak up about my needs and wants. And there was a lot of times that I was like, I was saying it in myself, and I wanted to speak about it so bad, but like I couldn't like voice it. And my partner knew that something was like, you're quiet, usually I'm very, smiling, bubbly. And so obviously, when which I'm sure this happens with a lot of survivors, you kind of shut down a bit because you don't know how to speak out. And you just become very lost in the sauce in your mind, because you're pretty much just going on and on with the thought. And so there was a couple of times that my partner had asked me, like, I need you to communicate, like, what is wrong, because I know that something is wrong. And it's just like, no, nothing's wrong. And it's because I'm so scared to voice what is going on, because I'm so afraid that if I say the wrong thing, that easily he could say, I don't want to be with you. And, and that's been my fear. And I had to come forth with him and tell him, like, look, like, yeah, I'm scared. I'm like, at any minute you can tell me you don't want to be with me. And I have to figure it out. And, I've been having to figure it out for the last 10 years. And, and he would tell me, like, one thing is not going to take away all this time that we have created and everything that we have built together. And I told him, like, but you don't understand, like, for me, it just took a drop of a hat, for everything to just flip completely differently. And and I told him I don't understand safety. I don't think of safety, because I told him I've always been in survival mode, that I will just figure it out. I will figure it out. I will figure it out. And so it's like, I still have that anxiousness of like, just understanding what safety means, because I don't know what that means, and so like, that's one of the major anxieties that I have had, is to just understand that, you're able to voice, and not, the whole world is not going to turn upside down just because you're speaking what is going on. And that's what a real partnership is being able to voice to each other and communicate with each other without, any violence or any yelling, any screaming, any fighting, shouting, things like that.
Absolutely. And I know also that I experienced some of the fear of are they going to be angry with me every time I turned around, right? And I'm sure, Carrie, you've probably experienced some of that as well, correct? You want to talk about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. A big thing for me, it was always, if I speak up, are they going to be angry at me? Actually, my therapist and I just had a conversation about this because of past relationships, which actually stems even further back to the abuse in my home. So I always had a fear of, if I speak up for myself, they're gonna run away. They're gonna run away. They're gonna say you're crazy. They're gonna think you're insane. So instead, I would hold it in and continue to hold it in until outbursts would happen, which is totally unhealthy. And
Yes.
that will cause somebody to run away. So that has been my biggest thing, is learning in this process of, okay, you can say things without saying them in a harsh way, and how to say them so you feel healthy enough and calm enough to say it to them. So, because there's been times where it's little things. It would be like, I don't like this type of food. And I'm afraid to say those things because I'm afraid that that person's going to be like, oh, well, you're weird, or you're this type of person. And that's even gone to as far as even in my friendships at one point in my life. But being now in my mid-30s, I'm like, you know what? I don't care. I need to conquer this to get through this. And it hurts every time. It's still like a heartbeat every time you try to say something to somebody, because you're like, what's going to be the reaction? Because the immediate reaction stems back to that little girl, all the way back to that little girl who got hurt. And then it stems back to those relationships where those men at those times were like, I don't like you because you spoke up for yourself, type of thing. So it's been a roller coaster.
Well, and it's been that way for all of us, I think. And Gabby, I mean, sometimes I know you've experienced that, and the things we talk about, like sometimes you get so wrapped up in the anxiety, you forget that you're missing out on the good times within this relationship, right? So you want to talk a little bit about that?
So, yeah, what I keep hearing from all of us, and I think that a lot of survivors have this in common, is abuse starts very early in life for a lot of people, whether it's in the home or it's young dating, it's, teenage dating, it's even the crush on the playground where we say, oh, that little boy hits you. Oh, he must like you. No, that's not. And that's really, I think, creating a lot of this, especially in women, and this relationship anxiety and not knowing how to behave. Like Carrie, you hit on a really great point about being scared to, that they're going to get angry at you, or to even express that you don't want to eat something. I've had the same problem, once again, in my friendships, in romantic relationships, in business, not wanting to speak up and saying, I don't want to do that. And it's very simple. I don't have to give a reason. I've just been, that anxiety just grips a hold of me. And like Nina had said, you start dating so young and you're never really taught how to take care of yourself. You're never taught how to find your voice. My mother, honestly, I think in the last 4 years has finally stopped telling me to go to church and find a good man to take care of me, because that's not going to happen. But that's taught to us women from such a young age, that if we're not A, B, C, D and way, oh my God, we're not going to find somebody. And then it all just kind of it just snowballs into each other. And then we end up in these abusive relationships because we were taught that the little boy that hit us on the playground must like us. So now we're in these relationships and, oh, well, he puts his hands on me or he calls me names. this must be love. He must like me. And it's not until I think you start to realize that that's not true, does the relationship anxiety really kick into full gear. At least it did for me, because now it's like every little thing I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? Well, why did you do that? Like, you know, and it's such a why game that I've come to the realization that the more I feel secure in myself, the more I build myself, the more I, you know, take care of myself and I learn how to take better care of myself, the more I'm going to be able to release that anxiety, the more I'm going to be able to know what is right for me when I do meet that person, because I've already figured out what's right for me, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, I was thinking about listening to all you ladies about, you know, even in my own experience, you know, as women, we naturally are people pleasers, and we are so much so with our relationships, and it just comes natural, and we want to please that person we're with. And when you're with an abuser who's a narcissist and all of that, they're constantly using those things against you. And so I know in my own experience, it was you know, a twisting of the things that brought you the most joy, that you felt like you did the best, right? And then they turn it into something that you become afraid to even do anymore. So like an example for me was, you know, I love to cook. I absolutely love to cook. And in the relationship, if it was something he didn't like, oh no, I have to start that meal over. It went in the trash, and you know, every meal was a constant turmoil. And so meal times were filled with anxiety for me. And coming into a new relationship, having to not be afraid of every time I cook dinner, is he going to like it? Is he going to like it? Is he going to eat it? Is it going to be something he enjoys? Am I going to have to start this over again? And it's really, you know, your brain processing still the trauma of what we endured. And it's definitely a self-defense mechanism. It's natural for us to question why, because we're trying to process something that wasn't natural, right? So I guess that's part of, you know, kind of leading into, you know, what we're talking about in next will be, you know, what causes that, what's the root of that. But before we move forward with that, I think Gabby's going to talk to you a little bit about some of our services and our website here at the organization.
Hey everyone. So at Break the Silence, we do everything that we possibly can to help survivors to recover from abuse and to move on in the next phases of their life. We offer that through programs like Holidays of Hope, where we help children of survivors so that they can get Christmas presents. We have our Grants of Hope program where we have our financial assistance. Every year we have a financial literacy class. At the end of it, survivors will get $1,000 grant. We help survivors to connect with sisterhood through our retreat programs. Our Survivor Sister retreats are absolutely life-changing and phenomenal. And to do all of this, we rely on your help. One of the things that we do use to encourage support survivors and our initiatives is to purchase from our store. You can get this lovely survivor shirt. The shirts are comfy, they're form-fitting, they have absolutely wonderful reviews. They've quickly become some of my favorite shirts. I actually have a hoodie as well, and I practically live in that thing, especially to go to the gym in the mornings. I'm telling you what, it is really comfy. But we couldn't do all of this without you guys. So thank you from the bottom for helping us and for supporting survivors and helping us all to rebuild and thrive as we were meant to in life.
Thank you, Gabby. And please also, here at Break the Silence, you can send us some love if this information is helping you by pushing the button on the stars here on Facebook and sending us a donation. And everything you send, we really appreciate. So let's move on to let's talk some more about the causes. I know we've touched on that some. And Carrie, you were talking about that the causes of this started from a young age. I feel the same experience, with your parents. Sometimes that low self-esteem starts from the family group and grows on. Is there some other causes that you think helped contribute to the anxiety that you feel?
Oh, absolutely. One of them was when they were boys back then. The boys I dated in high school, they weren't necessarily the gentlemen. They spoke very similar to the way that I was spoken to in my household, as well as when I moved, because I'm originally from a different state, when I moved from Massachusetts to Texas and I started dating men out here, I was choosing the men that were more like my family and the things that they were saying. So those were triggers. Those have really been building up that anxiety, those things where it's like, you're just weird, you laugh too funny, things like that. And it was small things. So it made me self-conscious as a person. And it gave me that anxiousness with even anything I did. I would walk on eggshells when it came to friendships because of it, when it came to relationships. And to this day, we're still working on that. So
absolutely. And it takes a lot of time and a lot of trust to change all of that. So Nina, can you talk a little bit about some of the deeper causes of what created this anxiety, maybe like that tendency to question yourself or some of the other things that you experienced?
Yeah, so I would definitely say it definitely comes from your environment, just number one, and the way that, like what Gabby kind of said, it really just does stem from a very young age, depending on like what your environment is. I know for me, I grew up in a very poor community, and where I come, where I was born and raised, I'm from Chicago, Illinois, and a lot of people that watch the news, yes, a lot of the things those things are true. It is filled with, gangs and violence and drugs, alcohol, sex. Like, I know still to this day, like, I grew up seeing things that, fighting, the way that men acting out of control, turf wars, shootings, those things were very normal to me. And, I don't think that until you get outside of your environment that you are only just going to be conditioned that way. For me, my mom had me at 15. My biological father was a gang member. He was abusive to my mother. I also believe that it stems, it's a generational thing. Physical abuse happened to my mother, to my grandmother. And, even though they did leave those relationships, but ultimately it was already in my bloodline before I was even born. So I do believe that those things do already have an effect. But again, it's also just ultimately your environment, you have more of a chance to go through the same things that your parents did because they're in that same environment. My mom was diagnosed with bipolar depression. So I really did not have no female role models. I'm the oldest one, I have a sister who's 9 years younger. I grew up with 5 boy cousins. So I really did not have any female role model to really just guide me, mentor me. And all the other girls that I hung out with, they were just my age. And again, I talked about the environment that I was involved in. They were doing the same things that I was doing, and that's the way that I was just programmed at a very young age. And I think for me, where the anxiety stems from is just I never knew how to speak up. And like I said, for me, it was just holding it in so much that I was just constantly always saying, keeping it to myself. And the biggest reason for me why I kept it in is because my mom was labeled as crazy at a very young age. So to me, it was like, I did not want to be labeled that. It's just like, you just shut up and you take it, right? Like that was just what I was, what I was brought up. And again, it's really just in your environment and the conditions that you're brought up in, that you are conditioned that way until like you really do see a life outside of it.
No, absolutely. And Gabby, what would you add to that?
Oh, wow. To me, it goes back to, once again, childhood. You know, not even childhood, I would say starting teenage years. I went through a long period of my life where I did not make very good choices. I was in addiction. I chose obviously the completely wrong man. I had chosen, and I just made really, really bad choices. So I'd never been taught how to make choices. I didn't know what I was doing. So as down the line, you know, you start to look back at the evidence, you're like, maybe I'm not fit to make this choice for myself. And it causes you, once again, to question everything. And then, like you said, Nina, it goes back to generational, you know, just abuse and thinking and ways that I did not have it in my family. I was invited into his generational abuse. And I didn't know what really to do with that. It was just, for me, it was, he didn't leave. So now I'm like, well, is that what I base all of relationships on? That, oh, if they don't leave, then, oh, they must love me and I must stay. So it's taken a lot of inner work to really get deep down and to realize that I have to start making good choices for myself. So that way I will trust my choices in every aspect of my life. And that goes down to very little things, deciding what to eat, what time to get up in the morning. It really all interconnects to each other, but it's also building safe relationships like around you. When I was growing up, I had a very safe relationship with my mother up until a certain period when she met my stepfather and she got remarried. And at that point, in my 12-year-old brain, you know, not in my fully developed adult brain, but in my 12-year-old brain, I had been rejected by my mother because she no longer needed me to do anything for her. I didn't have to. My mother actually had a conversation with me the other day, and she was joking. I know all of my latchkey kids here, you guys are going to understand this. She literally said that she was such a good girl. She was 4 years old and she was making me coffee and getting me breakfast. That's not normal for a 4-year-old child to be doing. And I did it because my mom worked so hard. It wasn't because she was, you know, a bad parent or anything like that. She was a hardworking single mother. It was what it was. But when she met my stepfather and no longer needed me for those things, I felt a very, very large sense of rejection. And I think that stemmed into everything, because when I got with my ex-husband, he was on the run. I was 13. Like, he was on the run. He was that bad boy. When I tell you guys, he was the bad boy. And he needed me. He needed me to take care of him. And now I am terrified of anybody needing me. Please don't need me. Please don't need me. Want me. Don't need me. And it just creates such an anxiety, and even stepping into the dating world, because all I ever hear men say is, I need a woman to do this. I need a woman. But I don't need you. So how is this going to work out?
I totally relate to what you're saying, Gabby, because like, which all of us, I'm hearing that, you know, it's definitely, it comes up through childhood. And I had that similar, you know, I'm a Gen Xer, so all of us were doing stuff at a very young age we should not have been doing. But one of them was taking care of my mother. And so that whole role of taking care of them and caregiver, and always, you know, again, wanting to please her, and the anxiety of what shoe will drop next, right? Because my mother was married 4 times, you know, and so seeing a healthy relationship was, you know, not from her. It came from my grandparents. It amazes me how much that sets you up for that same scenario, like you're talking about, the relationship of someone who's needing you. And one of the things I've discovered in having a healthy relationship now for 17 years of marriage, it's not about needing each other. It's about that continued respect for one another, of wanting to work together. Jim and I always have this thing that we say of like, a healthy relationship it's not a 50-50 thing. You hear people say that all the time, or it's not, I give 100% and you give 100%. What we discovered was a healthy relationship is when I'm at 20, he's at 80.
Mm-hmm.
And when he's at 15, I'm at, 85. And if we can run it 50-50, sometimes that's great. But to us, that is the best, explanation of what a healthy relationship will look like. Because when the other one is low, the other one picks them up. And yeah, go ahead, Carrie. You want to add to that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree on that. For me, I didn't necessarily grow up in a healthy environment when it came to relationships either. So when I actually moved out here, my biggest prayer was to find marriages that actually were healthy. And shout out to like my pastors and everybody, because that's how I ended up even learning that sacrifice that comes with marriage, but at the same point in a healthy way, not sacrificing your entire life. It's like, if your partner is at 20, like you said, and they're having a bad day or they're having a rough time, you can step right in. And that's something that I've been trying to not teach myself, but trying to learn in this process of dating, because I was always that person, because of my anxiety when it came to dating, of giving 100 all the time. And my partner would never know when I was at 20 or when I was at 10. And then I would explode. And then they'd be like, where did this come from? And so I definitely agree with you when it comes to that with healthy relationships.
Absolutely. And Nina, what about you with your new relationship? What would you kind of see that you've been able to do that's healthy?
So some of the things that I think that first like just struggle with when it comes to having anxiety and just having children too, I know some of like the things that I struggled with was just if I was making the right decisions, even with my kids. And I did want to talk about that because I think that obviously there is a lot of survivors that they still have to co-parent. And like there's a lot of questioning of like, I know for me, I have 2 boys, and it's like, there was a lot of questioning within myself, like, should I allow them to go? Then there's the custody issues. Then there's like, but I don't want my boys to turn out this way. If he's hanging around with him, are they going to end up like him? Or, what kind of men are my sons going to grow up to be? And, I'm trying to push them to learn how to take care of themselves, teaching them that not only women go in the kitchen, that, to do laundry, and it was just like, just really just taking calm and just remembering too, like, that for me, something that I struggle with, so I was the oldest. I helped take care of my brothers and sisters also. So like, I never really had like an actual childhood, not that I never got to play or anything like that, but I saw my mom working hard. So I always did all the housework and helped take care of them. And so it's honestly like, when it comes to my boys, like I have to step back a lot of the times and say, I have to allow them to be kids. They don't need to have the responsibilities that I had. And it's a constant struggle with that. And I think some of the things like is being able to communicate to my partner about those things, and even just communicating to him. I know the biggest thing, like when he's having a hard time in the beginning, a lot of the things that I was questioning, like, did I do something wrong? I always thought, is it me? What did I do wrong? And I would, have to ask him, and I still sometimes ask him, like, are you okay? And if he tells me no, and I still have to, he knows that I have to ask for reassurance, like, did I do something to you? Or he'll ask me the same way, because like he sees that I shut down, I shut down. And I think that it's really hard when you come from a relationship where something is always wrong, and then to come to a new relationship where you realize it's okay to have things wrong, that you're not supposed to be happy all the time. And so I think for me, that was the biggest struggle, is to realize that like a normal relationship is that you have your good days, you have your bad days together, not that you're against each other. And so it's really helped me just try to be more communicative between me and my partner. And we talk about a lot of those things, or even, you know, if the children are acting out, you know, to realize, how does that affect our relationship? How does that affect between us and, you know, the relationship between me and my kids, between me and my partner? So there's a lot of things to question, but I think the biggest thing is just you really have to learn how to communicate, even though that it's hard. But if you really love each other and try to really understand each other, that it will truly come together when two people want something to work.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
So, yes, go ahead.
Everybody keeps saying this wonderful word, and please mention in the comments if you agree. Tara, you said it, Nina said it, Kara, you said it, they want to. They don't need to. They don't need you to fill that space. They want you to. They want you to be that person. And I think that's so important as a distinguisher to needing somebody, you know, like you said, like, especially our generation, we were always taking care of somebody and we never took care of ourselves. So now I'm at a point where I want to care for myself, and I want somebody who wants to be faithful to me, somebody who wants to care for me and to spend time with me, but they don't need all of that. They want me to cook a meal for them, but they're not going to starve without me. I think that's very important to me now, even looking towards the future in a possible new relationship, is that they want to.
Yeah, that's a good point. So many people struggle with that, you know, because today everybody is so what's the word I'm looking for? You are driven to, you want things immediately, you know, and so relationships take a lot of work. And in order for it to be healthy, there's going to be times you backslide on that. And there's going to be times that, you know, that you have to have that communication, like Nina said, in order for it to work out, so that you can tell your significant other the things that you are feeling anxious about. And when the relationship is right, they're going to understand. So I think right now this is just a good point to just for a second. If you're watching, you know, please put in your comments below, or again, if you have any questions that you want the panelists to answer, at the end here, we'll go through and answer whatever questions are in the comment boxes. So, and also I'd like our viewers to know about here at Break the Silence right now, we are fundraising for our Keeper Memorial Program. And that program creates a website memorial for those who have been murdered during an act of domestic violence. It's a way that the families can honor and cherish their loved ones and keep their memory alive. And for $25, it helps to give them a permanent memorial that the families will never, ever have to pay for. So if you would like to help with that program, please be sure to, we'll have some links in the comment section for that, or check it out on our website and give your donation there. So going forward, what kind of like physical, have you had like actual like the physical symptoms of your anxiety and how it comes on? So let's talk about that. Gabby, I'll let you go first about like, some people don't recognize the physical symptoms of this kind of anxiety when it comes on, when something has triggered you. So what's some of the things you've experienced?
I'm so glad you called me, because I actually just experienced this. I've been out of the dating scene for almost 6 years now. So it's been quite a while before I've really started to date. So I had decided just recently to go on a date. Tara, Carrie, you guys know about this. Like, I was so nervous, and it wasn't the nervous, like, what am I going to wear? What am, it wasn't any of that. It was, he's going to touch me. And it, I know, I'm serious. Like, I can't be one that has dealt with this. Like, he was going to touch me, and I'm not talking about in a sexual way. I'm talking about a hug. He was going to maybe grab,
hold your hand. Yes.
front. Like, I didn't know he was going to touch me. Why are you touching me? Like, and I think, Carrie,
in there.
That's really the biggest physical symptom I have of my anxiety when it comes to dating is they're going to touch me. And it's not, and I always watch these stupid TikToks where they're like, it really sucks when it's your love language is touch, but you're so traumatized that you don't want people to touch you.
Yes.
And it's insane. I mean, even down to like my daughter's dog that's staying with me, he's always touching me. Sarah, I said it to you yesterday. He won't stop touching me. Like, that is, I think, for me, the biggest physical symptom, like, because I've done the inner work and I do the meditations and I do the breath work and, I do the work. I'm not having like a physical panic attack, but it's like, he gave me a hug and it was, my whole body went rigid. I was like, why are you still touching me? Like, okay, calm down, breathe. Like, I mean, it was my entire body. And I think what really turned me off the most about the situation is he didn't even pick up on that. How are you hugging somebody and their entire body is like,
I know.
and you're just still hugging them and you're saying how nice this feels. Like, why? So I think that's so important on both ends of the dating for people to really be attuned and pay attention to the person that you're trying to date and you're trying to get to know. If they're showing you these signs and they're pulling away from you, or they're very rigid when you go to touch them, 99% of the time, it has absolutely nothing. Now, don't get me wrong, I've been touched and it had everything to do with the other person. But most of the time, it is your own anxiety. It's that person's trauma that is causing them like this. So don't internalize it for yourself. Maybe ask them about their life. Hey, what have your past relationships been like? See how that is and open up about your past relationships. You don't have to tell them every nitty-gritty detail on the first date, but letting somebody know that you weren't treated that well in the past, I think really helps to relieve the anxiety on both ends, because they're like, okay, well, maybe they don't, unless they're just dense and they're not listening to you. Most people will understand that, okay, I understand this. Somebody's hand at one time was not so kind to them. So now they're scared of a hand that offers them no harm. But you go back to that grooming and to that programming. I don't know about you guys. I don't know about what listeners here, but sometimes I didn't know what my ex-husband's hand was going to do. Yeah. As he may have been reaching for me, I still didn't know what it was going to do. So that grooming takes years, and I'm still not done. I'm still working through that. I'm 10 years free. I'm still working through that. And then I went through another manipulative relationship where they used touch and sex to manipulate me.
Oh, I know.
Now,
girl,
about the ultimate withholding of sex, the stopping you from the big O right before to manipulate and control you. So now, like, doubly, like, ooh, I don't know. Like, you're going to have to.
I had so much anxiety. The first person I was with after him, I thought I was going to throw up. It just overwhelmed me. I felt so physically ill, and it was just the uncertainty of something that should be the most intimate time between two people. I get you, girl. I feel that. I feel it.
The casual encounters, I've been 17 months now. I'm completely celibate, and what I realized is the casual encounters, whatever, it was what it was. It was an act. But now that I've really dug deep into my healing and started to move forward into really diving into myself and dealing with my triggers and understanding myself and learning myself, it's, if this doesn't feel right, like if for some reason something's off about the situation, I am not with it at all. Like I'm not with it. I'm actually able to say no now, because I know that was another really big thing with me, relationship anxiety. When I would tell my ex-husband no when it came to sex, we would spend the entire night arguing. I know I'm not the only one who experienced this one.
Yeah.
That let me just let him do his business and be done with it. And that's literally what it felt like, the color purple doing their business. And that's what it was. So now I'm even more like, I have to deal with that nature of it. And I have to be in a safe spot that I can tell somebody no. Because as a survivor, I know I've had sexual relationships with people I didn't want to. But I was so terrified of saying no that I just did it anyways. And yes, that's a form of rape, but I don't feel like that's on the other person, because you have to be really kind of in tune to know that somebody doesn't want this. I think it's more on you that, you know, this is part of yourself that you have to heal. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, the work, it sucks. And Carrie, I know you're in therapy. Tara, I know you've done the work. Nina, I know you've done the work. But it's so worth it, because I know when I'm ready, I'm going to be able to step into a happy and healthy relationship because I've done that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nina, what's some of the physical, I mean, like actual physical things that you felt with your anxiety over relationships?
So some of the things for me, like just to kind of touch off what Gabby said, I know for me, because I was having sex at a very young age at 13, and I didn't understand intimacy and none of that. I was just programmed that sex meant love. So when I got out of the relationship, I was just kind of just sleeping with men and believing, oh, that this was love and that they want to be with me. And really quickly, you know, when they wouldn't, and then I would feel disgusted about myself, and then I would cry and I would blame myself, like, why did you give yourself to someone you just met? Or, you know, I had a one-night stand before, and, you know, I didn't even understand what one-night stands meant. Like I just knew that I would feel so deeply that I don't understand, like, how you could just sleep with someone and make them believe that you like them, but then you ghost them, right, is what they say. But so like I was just very programmed that I thought that anytime that I slept with someone that this was the one, right, that this was the one. And then when I was, you know, obviously found out that it wasn't, I would feel very insecure about myself. I just was, you know, just kind of in this self, you know, did not feel good about myself. And so it took me some time to really understand what, like, sex actually, it is supposed to be intimate, that it's supposed to be a connection, that it's supposed to be, you know, some of those things. And like Gabby said, there was a lot of times that sometimes you believe that you have to give yourself to the man, or that you're supposed to just, you know, allow them to do whatever they want to, even if you don't want to. And some of the things like I know for me, like besides that part, I mean, some of the anxiety that I had honestly was like still flinching, like for certain things I would, like, you know, jump. And honestly, there was a moment that it happened between, you know, trying to have intimacy with my partner, and my partner freaked out, and then I would feel bad. You know, I still feel bad when I flinch. And, you know, there is a couple times it turns off the mood, right? It turns, like, your partner doesn't know exactly sometimes how to handle that. So I remember, you know, I felt bad afterward, and I was just like, oh my God, like, I'm so sorry, you know. And, you know, he would tell me, like, I'm not, you know, I never want to hurt you or anything. And I had to explain to him that that has nothing to do with him, that it's still reactions that I just have from the previous relationship. But, you know, obviously, if you have a partner who's flinching, that just kind of tells you already, like, some of the things that they have gone through, even though you really are just trying to love them. But when you've been programmed that love hurts, that it's really hard for somebody to understand that. So any woman who is struggling to find intimacy or understand that love is supposed to be something that's cherished, that's soft, that something that you accept openly, that you, and if for some reason that's not, you know, it's not happening that way, that you can walk away, that you can say no. And if they're saying, if you're getting a reaction that you don't like out of it, then that's like, you know, that's a sign for you to walk away, because you're allowed to express, to say no, even if you are in a romantic relationship. You shouldn't have to give yourself because you think that you have to. It's because, again, like Gabby said, that the want, because you want to. And the same thing with your partner, and a true partner will understand that.
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah, I had a terrible time with the flinching too. And oh my goodness, Carrie, what kind of physical symptoms have you experienced?
Mainly I'm like a fight or flight. Is that what they say? Fight or flight mode my body
Yeah.
goes into. Just from, and that's mainly from past relationships. I've definitely dealt with a lot of what Nina said with the intimacy part, because when I was younger, I was looking for that love, and I found sex to be that love. It was one of those things, like, oh, like it was that I don't want to say fairy tale, but it was like those movies, like they make love and then they're suddenly in love. It was like, no, it was more of, you're letting the guy do the business and he's like, peace out. And it was my way of coping, which was horrible, absolutely horrible. But I'm very much like Gabby, and I'm celibate myself. But I still have that anger when something triggers me in a relationship. Kind of a funny story, but not really. I was dating this person, and one night, like, we were just sleeping in the same bed, and usually he would cuddle me. And one day he just did not cuddle me. When I say my body went so angry, you could feel the bed moving, temper tantrum type of thing. And it was because I was like, he doesn't love me anymore. In my head, my mind was going crazy. It was like, he doesn't love me anymore. He doesn't like me. It's because this, but I knew in my mind it was because he had a rough day.
Right.
But my head already physically fight or flight. And it's like, I want to get out of this bed at 2:00 in the morning and just go back to my apartment, because I'm done, because I don't want to get myself hurt. So a lot of anger still festers when it happens. So I actually have to check myself first and be like, whoa, where is this coming from? Is this really logical or no? Because I've gotten to this point where it's like sort of like a shield that I put over myself so I don't fall into place. I look back at it now and I laugh, but at the same point, I'm like, I can't live my life this way. I have to figure out how can I cope with this? And it comes back to that communication piece. It's like, I probably should have woke up and said, hey, this is how I'm feeling because you didn't cuddle me. Like, and it was something small, but at the same point, my head is going back to that little girl, to those relationships that did not work. And it was hard.
Oh yeah. And listening to you, I think back of the times of what I did myself. I did quite a bit of self-sabotaging in that area the first year of my marriage that I have now, where everything was the response from me was, well, fine, I'll just leave.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to be in this and put in this position again. I will leave before bad shit happens, excuse my language. And that's the way I felt. I'm going to leave. And I would pack up a bag, and my children were teenage girls then, and I'd be like, pack your bags, we're going. And he would just sit there going, I don't know what happened, and there were times I even drove down the road and I was like, I am not doing this with you. Yep. I'm never going to do this again. And I literally did not stop that until we had been married a year. And I pulled out a bag, and all of a sudden he walked around the other side of the bed, and he pulled out a bag and he starts packing it up. And I'm like, what are you doing? You can't leave. I'm the one who is leaving, right? And he's like, no, I'm leaving too. I said, no. He goes, yes, because wherever you go, I'm going with you. So if you're leaving, I'm going with you. Because I don't want to be without you. And it just smacked me like a ton of bricks what I was doing to this man. And I didn't do it again. And we sat down and had the conversation as to what brought those things on. So yeah, it was very disheartening to see that I was the person being so triggered that I was manipulating him in ways because I didn't want to be in that position again where I felt abused or heartbroken or manipulated. And so that's what I used, was that constant, I'll just leave. I'll get out of this. You know, I don't have to put up with this. So
I would just go ghost. That was me. I was the one that would go ghost. I know it was horrible and I hated it being done, but I was like, let me do this before they do it, because I don't deal with it. So I was very much like, cut it off.
Girl, you is not alone. I would do the same thing. I would be leaving his house, and you're black. I don't know why, but something made me feel that you were going to do it. So I'm going to do it. So yeah, I don't know what else to tell you. And 99% of the time, that was probably not the case. I mean, it may have been, but yeah, no, you are not alone. Tara, I'm the same way. I don't even make it to the altar. I don't even make it to the first day. And I'm like, oh, bye. Okay. See you later.
I hear you. Well, I had known him a long time, or I probably wouldn't have made it to the altar if I didn't know him and trust him beforehand. But my goodness, the things that we went through, yeah, because of our past, because he had his own trauma from first marriage relationship as well. We both had to, you know, he had some certain aspects of relationship anxiety as well because of his first divorce. So overcoming that as a couple definitely is a unique experience. And sometimes we forget that the other person has some of that going on too as well. And it's hard to imagine that we have those kind of things, that our partners are experiencing it as well. So I think this is a good time to real quickly, Gabby, if you'd like to talk about the podcast for a little bit.
So, as you guys probably know, we have a YouTube channel. At btsadv is our handle, where our podcast is posted. You can watch it whenever you would like to. We also post a whole bunch of different shorts with information, survivor stories of survivors sharing their stories of survival and how they overcame their abuse, educational information, and just some fun is a little bit sprinkled in there too. But we're trying to grow. So we need the help of our supporters. If it wasn't for you guys, none of this would be possible. So I need you guys to jump over to our YouTube after this live and subscribe, because we are doing a giveaway. Once we reach 1,000 subscribers, we are going to randomly choose somebody who has subscribed to our channel, and we are giving away a Ring do-it-yourself at-home security system valued at over $200. You will get cameras, you will get a security pad, because we all know dating period, but even after a relationship, feeling safe is so very important. And we at Break the Silence really want to help to contribute to that. Just to let you know, Ring nor YouTube has sponsored this giveaway in any way, shape, form, or fashion. This is something that we are doing to help survivors feel safe and secure their lives so you can move on to other parts that need that healing.
Oh, thank you. So yes, please check that out. Please subscribe, like, put stuff in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. So we've touched on it some. So to kind of, wrap up part of the broadcast here, how do we overcome it? What is some of the tools or some of the things that you have found that have helped you to overcome this kind of anxiety with relationships? We talked a little bit here and there about therapy and communication, but Carrie, would you go first? What are some of the things you have that you would tell people that have worked for you to help you overcome it?
First thing is, like you said, therapy has been my best friend. But one thing that I've learned that I had a former pastor say is, if you want to date someone, first you need to start dating yourself. And that's done so much healing for me. It's one of those things where I got to realize what my triggers were, because it's nerve-wracking to go to a restaurant by yourself and have dinner, not at the bar, but have it at a table. It's like, in my head, I was like, those people are lonely and da, 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 da. But at the end of the day, those are the most confident people in the room to do that. Go to the movies by yourself. I go to concerts by myself. I actually do solocations, and I've got to learn what I'm like when I travel, what I'm like when I am by myself at a restaurant, what I like to eat, what I don't like to eat. I've learned those things, and those have helped me to figure out who I am as a person. And another thing is just listening to myself. So when I hear myself saying those negative thoughts, and especially when I'm triggered, it's like, I have to tell myself, is this me, or is this the trauma that I've gone through? And when you constantly do that, and that comes with everything, because triggers aren't just in relationships with me. They've also been just even sometimes when I'm at work, or it's like I see something on TV, something will trigger me, but it's like, where is this mindset coming from? Where is this trigger coming from? And then what do I need to do to get back to that grounded place of who I am? So it's really about discovering yourself, especially as a single woman that's overcoming trauma, that's trying to get to that healthy place. You'll get there, but it takes time and it's a process. And give yourself grace. At the end of the day, give yourself grace. I give myself grace on a daily basis, because I constantly am reminded that those triggers are coming back, and I constantly have to keep forgiving myself. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And Nina, what would you say about some of the things that helped you, not only you overcome it, but maybe some ways that you've had to help your children overcome some of that as well?
So for me, I absolutely just love this topic, because I think like we're all looking for, like, we need help, right, as a thing. And so for me personally, at that time that I had just left, I could not afford to do therapy or to do counseling. And I think number one is to educate yourself. I know for me, I didn't even realize I had PTSD, and I was struggling very, very badly. I could not sleep. I could not eat. I was scared out of my mind. I would constantly check the locks on my door, even though at that time, the father of the kids and the abuser wasn't in jail at that time. But I was still freaking out that some way, somehow he was going to get out and he was going to, hurt me or hurt the children. And so number one, just like educating yourself of like what PTSD, what are the triggers, those are some of the things that I had to learn about myself. And the biggest thing that helped me was, number one, just journaling, because it just really helped me. I couldn't talk about, some of obviously the things that we're talking about these are not things that you can't talk really about with your friends or with your family, or you feel that you're going to be judged, or you don't know what people are going to think of you. And so just writing down whatever you have that's going on with you, to take it outside yourself. And I really found that journaling really helped me with that. I was able to self-discover myself, which Carrie is absolutely right about that. Like, you need to discover who you are, because you have to realize that you've been programmed for such a long time to be a certain way, to think a certain way, to look a certain way, to cook, clean, whatever the situation was of whoever you were with, but you've been conditioned a certain way. So it's like, okay, so who am I without these conditions? I'm allowed to be free. So who am I? You know, it's like you really, and you understand freedom. You'll understand a lot of things about yourself, what you truly like, what you know, to be honest, you know, I didn't even know what kind of music I liked until I was 25, because there was nobody asked me what kind of music that you like. What would you like to listen to today? Hey, why don't you put, there was no such, I was never asked, what would you like? It's like, you're going to do what I tell you to do, or if not, you know what's going to happen, you know? So it's just like, just learning how to separate yourself from your thoughts, because if you come from a place where you've been holding so much in, it's constant, just ramble within your mind, and it's being able to separate yourself. And I found by doing that, that you'll ultimately be able to become your own therapist. You'll be able to separate yourself from your thoughts and be able to talk to yourself and love yourself. So like, I know for me, the biggest thing was I would talk down to myself, because I was conditioned to being called so many names and degraded. And so like, you know, I had to really learn how to ask myself, like, hey, how are you feeling? You know, talk to yourself like you would talk to a friend, you know, how are you doing? You know, when you're calling yourself names, like, would you say that to your friend? Like, that was one question I would always ask myself, was like, how would you talk to your best friend? If you're not talking, you should be talking the same way you would to your best friend. You shouldn't be talking to yourself down. And so again, it was just like really just educating myself, because and you know, till this day, I don't know what a woman is, but I educate myself and seeing healthy relationships, seeing healthy women, what it means to be a mom. And also too, like Carrie said, giving yourself grace, because I know for me, you know, I am no way, shape, or form a perfect mother. You know, I've snapped at my kids, I've yelled at my kids, and then I would have like these breakdowns, like, oh my God, I'm a terrible mother. And, you know, so like those things come, and just, you know, trying to even have your kids understand what you're going through. I know my kids had triggers, I put them in counseling. So it's a lot of like, you know, I don't want to say of like always doing all the time, because you don't want to get in the repetition of doing something all the time. You really want to learn how to slow down. But it's just educating yourself something, or speaking with somebody. And obviously now, as like technology changes, we have groups like this, we are doing this live. We have obviously more resources than what we did back then, which is absolutely amazing. But I think that it's just really just learning how to expand your mind a little bit more, and learning to trust yourself. And by doing that, by being able to self-discover who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gabby, what's
You
some of the things that you've done to help you overcome?
Yeah, really, survivors, when we say we're sisters, we really are, because everything that Carrie has said, that Nina has said, is things that I have either done or I'm working on to help me to overcome this. Like Nina said, journaling was so helpful with getting out of my own headspace and talking to myself, like you said, like a friend. And I've been doing this, the I am journaling, for years now. And I, even to the point where, you know, you do something silly and you're like, oh my God, I'm so stupid. I catch myself immediately. No. So you have to learn how to treat yourself in order for you to know how you want to treat somebody else, or how you want somebody else to treat you. Everything starts with everything starts with the self. All starts with you. Carrie actually inspired me to start dating myself. And I'm like, you know, I want these guys to do all this stuff, but I'm not even doing this for me. So how can I expect anybody to do that? So I bought a ticket. I'm going to a comedy show. You know, I'm scheduling at least once a month to take myself out to a nice dinner, to get dressed up, to really try not to get out of my legging and sweatshirt. Well, okay, I'll probably have an outfit that involves leggings. I'm not going to lie to you guys, but and I will get dressed up and to just do for myself. I'm a very firm believer in inner work and the universe, in alignment with your future and alignment with what you want to bring into your life. So if you haven't taken the time to do the inner work, to fix the parts of you that you do not want to attract to you, you're going to keep attracting that same thing over and over and over over again, because you're only going to attract what you are in alignment with. So if you're still over the rumifying over the pain that you were caused and the abuse and everything, instead of trying to figure out how to fix it within yourself and how to move on from that pain, I believe you're going to continue to draw that into your life. And I know that from perfect examples from myself. When I start talking negative about myself, other people start talking negatively about me. When I start doubting myself, other people start doubting me. So it all begins with the I and starting with that inner work. And it's so, so, so important. And that's one of the reasons, why we're here as an organization, to help survivors after the abuse to learn how to do the after work and how to take care of you. That self-care, I know, is just, I think that's one of the biggest things that I've ever done, take care of myself and to overcome relationship anxiety.
Yeah.
I just wanted to piggyback off Gabby really quick and just add to that. I just wanted to say that I think that Gabby is absolutely right when it comes to attraction. And I would say that you will notice it, just to give some pointers to women who are out of the relationship. I know for me, when you're desperate, you're going to attract desperate men. And when you're not emotionally available to yourself, you're going to attract emotionally unavailable men. When you're, some of the other women that I've come across, other survivors, and especially ones who are older than me and who have already like in a new relationship, they always tell me that their partner came when they were just really having fun, and not looking for a relationship. And then the relationship happened, and that was absolutely like what happened with me and my partner. Like, I had like, I like to say thirsty energy, because you will attract, if you're like, looking desperate, you're going to attract these like thirsty men that are just only want one thing from you. And that happened to me. And so it was just like, I really said, okay, you know what? Like, I'm just tired of these guys. Like, I don't want nothing. Like, I just want to be left alone, because I'm so tired of you guys. You guys just, you don't even ask me what my name is. You just telling me straight out what you want. I'm like, like, no, and so when I really had just said, okay, I'm going to love myself. Like, that was when, I'm a firm believer of the universe also, that it will, everything will align at the right time, but you cannot be asking so many questions. You can't be so desperate, or, you're going to attract the wrong thing to you. And another thing that I just wanted to mention, like, I know you guys talked about taking yourselves out and doing things like that, but I would just say, even as simple as buying yourself flowers, anything that you want men to get for you, get it for yourself first, because how do they even know what flowers that you like or anything when you're not even doing it to yourself, and even honestly, even if you are in a relationship, still do it. To this, I am in a new relationship, but, I will come home with flowers, and, I remember the first time my partner saw it, he's like, did you buy yourself flowers? I'm like, yes, I did, like, so you still have that within yourself, that, just because you are in a relationship, that you don't have to be waiting on somebody else to do it for you. Do it for yourself.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, Tara. I just want to say, I love that you said that, because honestly, I just had an epiphany. I don't know what my favorite flower is. I mean, I like roses, I think, but I don't really know what my favorite flower is. So I think that's such a great point of self-discovery, to find out about yourself. What do you really like? Do you just like this because somebody brought it to you? But yeah, no, thank you, Nina. Like, that's so, what's you guys' favorite flower? Like,
I love daisies. Because I buy them weekly. I buy daisies weekly. Trader Joe's is the best.
I love roses, but I have a very specific type of rose. Like, I love two-toned roses, so where like it's like two colors, so it's like white, and it will have like the tips will be red or something. So like, I am very picky about the flowers that I like. I know what flowers, that they're not just any roses, they're special roses. They need to be, and I'm very picky too, like I take a while to pick the roses. I'm not just like, oh, I'm just gonna grab. No, let me look through them carefully with a lot of love and bring them home and care for them, because that says a lot about too, the way that you're caring for yourself, how, that you don't just pick anything, so I love two-toned roses, usually preferably like where they're white and they have like tips of like red, like those are just my favorite.
Yeah, well, I'm a roses girl as well, but they have to be where they have scent. I want to smell them. And I love them so much that I will not only buy them, but I grow my own. So I just go out and cut them whenever I want because I grow my own. And that's been a key thing for me, you know, is figuring out, hey, the first, you know, my first formidable years were my parent time. Got married, that was my husband's time. Got children, that was their time. And now it's my time, you know, and that whole journey of self-discovery, of, you know, discovering what I like, what I don't like, what I will do, what I won't do, being comfortable to go to that restaurant by myself. This is my time. And I have to say, having a partner that is phenomenal in the aspects of, it's okay for me to go have my time, and it's okay for him to have his time, and it's okay to come together and have our time. Made myself grow in such a way that there ain't nothing I can do. If I put my mind to it, I'm going to move the furniture in the room. If I put my mind to it, I'm going to fix my own car. If I put my mind to it, I can do all kinds of things, and all the possibilities are endless. And I had to learn that by overcoming the things that made me anxious coming out of that abusive relationship. So, is there anything anybody else wanted to add before we go to questions or comments? All right. Well, Carrie, do we have any like questions or comments you want to share before we wrap this up?
We do. We have a couple. So the first one is, what advice can you give someone who was raised with a narcissistic family, a homicide survivor, and ex-fiance, ex-boyfriend's abuse?
Oh, wow. What kind of advice? I didn't say specific.
No specific, but I'm thinking it's along the same lines that we're talking about.
Right. Any of you want to tackle that?
Yeah, I would share on that. So number one, I would just say number one, that I know that, you know, for this person that asked this, that I know that you're hurting. I know that you're tired of feeling of pain. I know that you're tired of crying. I know that you're tired of being misjudged and hurt. And it just feels like, you know, that when is it ever gonna end? And to tell you that it does end. Like, you will not live like this forever. And that I know that you don't understand right now. But, you know, we all go through these pains, you know, we all have our own stories, we all do. And one thing that is similar is the pain, right? And that it hurts so much. But I can truly tell you that when you really learn how to put the pain aside and really start, you know, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was crying every single day. I would cry myself to sleep, you know. Again, I was having nightmares. I couldn't eat, you know. I would wake up in the middle of the night. I even tried to take, you know, there was times I would try to take NyQuil so I could sleep, because like I couldn't even sleep, you know. And if you're not sleeping, you're not eating. And for me being a mother, I couldn't fully attend to my kids. I was snapping at them. You know, you have to just really embrace the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I know that, you know, for the ugly, just you hate it and you don't like it, but you have to accept that that is a part of you too. And you have to learn how to love that and accept that is who you are. You can keep to choose running away, but every time that you run away, it's going to keep coming back at a time that you don't want it to. And so you really just have to sit there with it and ask yourself those questions, you know, and talk to yourself, learn how to love yourself in those moments, you know. Tell yourself, hey, like, you know, you didn't deserve that, you know, you didn't do nothing wrong. And you will start opening up to yourself and just learning how to handle those moments. And one day, you know, there's a great quote that I love, that you can't see the steps, you know, looking forward, but when you look back, you're going to see, and you're going to be so proud of yourself. And, you know, this is why we have communities like this, so that you know that you're not alone, that you're not crazy, that there is nothing wrong with you. Nobody deserves this pain, but unfortunately, these are things that that have happened to people and are still currently happening, but this is not the way of life forever, you know, and you will get to learn that part, you know, in time and with healing and with love. And again, just embracing the good, the bad, and the ugly. And one day you're going to be able to tell your story. And it's honestly just being able to speak about it, you know, and not feeling there is guilt, there is shame, there is blame. We've all gone through those things or still currently working on them, but just know that that is a part of the healing journey. And, you know, with time and with doing the work, that one day that you will be able to come out of it and you'll be able to speak about it and help the next person.
Yeah, and I think I would add to that too, for this person to know that you survived that for a reason. And you may not know that reason today. It may be a year in your journey or even 10 years into your journey. But there is a reason you're here, that you're supposed to be here. There's a reason you survived it. There's a purpose for it somewhere down the road. In the way of survivors tend to be the people that are there to help fellow survivors. And somewhere when your time comes, you'll be that person for the next group of women who experience this and go through this. So that's one of the things I do love about our organization and the people here. So, and anybody else want to add to that? Or Miss Carrie, you got another question?
What kind of advice would you give to someone when their mom is in denial of the way she has treated them as a kid? This person says that their mom looks down on them, and that with that, she had never felt love from the beginning. I can definitely, you want to go?
All of us would be like, we can talk to this one, but go ahead.
I would say personally, you have to realize that your healing is not going to come from someone understanding what they did to you. One thing I've had to learn in my healing journey is that person may never say, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize I did this to you. And the way I did that was through a lot of learning myself and self-love, because I've been through a lot of talking down to a lot of all of that. And it's to the point where it hurt, where these people that were literally my own family felt like they were making me this person that wasn't who I wasn't. So I had to literally take myself out of my family. I moved a whole different state, and that's when I was able to discover myself. And I had to set boundaries. That's another thing too, because we, especially in the Black community, we are very much like, you don't go silent on your family, family's everything type of thing. But sometimes you've got to set a boundary, and you've got to sometimes cut people off. It's gotten to the point where I have blocked family members on my phone because I needed to do it for my own healing. I understood, and I was able to forgive as I moved forward. But make sure that you put yourself first in that situation. Don't look to her to say, hey, I completely apologize, because that I hate to say it, but it may never happen. And you don't want to live your life that way. And then, like I said, I am a huge advocate for therapy. If you can get a therapist, absolutely do it. So yeah, go ahead, Gabby.
So I've experienced this personally from my mom, even though I know my mom has always loved me. But it is a generational thing, because as her mother spoke to her, she then started speaking to me, but it was kind of more watered down. You know, things get kind of better with generation after generation. But I'm going to go piggyback off what Carrie said and say, what broke you cannot heal you. So if you feel like your relationship with your mother contributed to your trauma, it contributed to your pain, to your scars, to your relationship, you know, how you're in relationships now, to your relationship with yourself and how you talk to yourself, you cannot look to your mother for, or anybody for that fact, to heal you and heal that pain. That would be, you know, as a domestic abuse survivor, me calling my ex-husband and saying, if you don't tell me sorry for the way you treated me and what you did to me, I'm never going to heal. And he's going to go, guess you're going to have a crappy life. So what I mean by saying that harsh point is, if you hinge your healing on somebody else and their opinions and what they're going to say to you, you are never going to move past that. And about 4 years ago, I'm also a recovering addict, so I know the devastational consequences this type of stuff can really have on you. I had to look myself in the mirror when I started to get clean and say, I literally mucked up my entire life because I was mad at my mother. It didn't feel good to say that because I was angry. I was destroying my life. I was in bad relationships. I was doing drugs. I was making bad decisions, all because of this weight that I carried because of how she treated me when she was living her best life and had no issues whatsoever. So I'm going to ask who asked this question, who are you carrying this for? What are you carrying this weight for? You are responsible for your own healing at the end of the day. So though she, like Carrie said, that absolution may never come. I stopped looking for that a long time ago. My mother still says stuff to me and I'm just like, okay, love you too. And just kind of keep it moving. But that takes time to build up that type of armor because once again, that's your mom. Like, your mom shouldn't say that kind of stuff to you. And once again, I'm a recovering addict. So all my recovering addicts there, you guys know how our families can speak to us, especially when we're trying to get to where we are right now. So like Carrie said, again, sometimes you have to remove yourself from them temporarily and sometimes permanently.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll speak from my experience because it is similar, but it's a little different. My trauma with my mom went on for a long time, definitely affected my relationships and who I picked and everything that went on. And I tried my best to just get her approval on everything. And I never felt like I could ever get it. And it took a lot of time and maturity to discover, and it took the death of my daughter, who was killed during a domestic violence incident, to find out the things that the trauma my mother went through, the abuse and the molestation, and that it was generational for 100 years within our family. And I had no clue what she was dealing with until that moment came. And it took a lot of maturity on my part to say and look back at it and go, she did the best with what she had. I don't know that I could have done as well under what she endured. And still have all these children and still try to raise us and still try to be there for us. And everything I had thought I lacked in a mother, when we were enduring the trials over my daughter's death in the courts, she was one of 3 people who was there at every court hearing with me. And I felt like at that time I finally got the mother that I wanted. But it took that tragedy for it to come out. And so I think it's a shame. I think it's good that we have these dialogues and that the families try to have dialogues, because without it, I never would have the relationship I had today with my mother. I would have never understood what she went through, her mother went through, my great grandmother went through, and break those generational curses. So remove yourself, definitely, if it's creating a trauma for this time period, but just remember somewhere down the line, they may have to do their own healing and you can't be involved in that. So
I kind of want to piggyback off of what you just said, Tara. Learning what my parents had gone through actually helped with my healing as well, because we see things so one-sided at times, and when you find out what they've really gone through, it really does give that perspective, like, oh, this is why, because there is addiction in my family, and I never understood as a young kid, why my father was an addict. But when I found out the resource, it was one of those things where it was like, whoa, I did not know this. And I was able to realize it's that trauma that did that made him who he is today. He's still the most loving man on the face of this planet, but things happen. And that helped me to truly forgive and try to figure out a way to build a relationship with him. And I would say that to that person as well. If you can find out the source behind it, you don't have to like dig for it, because sometimes it just comes about, because that's what happened with me. Do it, because it does help with that healing process, and you understanding the fact that I'm sorry won't come because of that. So
I just
absolutely.
to add to that also. So I know you guys talked about generational, and yes, I would say that happened to my family as well. It turned out that, my mother, she was sexually abused as a child, and so was my grandmother. So that really did pass on. And, I know for me, like I said, that my mom, she was diagnosed with bipolar depression. And so I think you have to also understand what you're going through is, usually is like you're angry and it's because you want to blame, and you want to say it's because of you that I went through all of this pain. And we want to compare ourselves, especially when we see like other women who have the mother-daughter relationships where, they're so close, and they have all these pictures, and, they have the relation, you see the relationship that that you didn't have. And so it kind of just brings the blame and the anger, like, why can't my kids, have call you grandma? Why can't my kids, see you? Why can't, that was some of the things that I was going through, that I wanted to say that, my kids will never have a relationship with their grandmother because she is, unable to watch them and things like that. So it was really me just comparing. And it was not, until I was able to really forgive and just understanding what forgiveness means. Forgiveness does not mean that you're okay with everything that had happened, but you accept that it couldn't have been any other different. So that means that like you cannot keep comparing yourself to keep picturing a relationship that that cannot happen. You're putting so much energy and so much focus on something that is not there, versus just accepting for what it is and what can I do about it now. And it took me some real time to understand. And when I found out that what my mom and my grandma had went through about the sexual abuse, and how like that passed down onto the way that they didn't have the structure to be a mother, and they're also battling through their own things and using drugs and alcohol to cover up their pain. And so ultimately I was able to accept and say, okay, you know what, like it's not my mom's fault, it's nobody's fault, like it's been happening and nobody's been talking about it. And I think that makes us as survivors, and makes us that much more special, because we're doing something in our family line that has not been done before. We're shedding light on stuff that you used to not be able to be talked about or be spoken of. We're bringing light to that darkness and really healing that pain. And it took me a long time to tell my mother, to this day, I told my mother that I don't think that you're crazy. I think that you were just really going through something and you couldn't talk about it, just like I couldn't talk about it. And and now honestly I'm just grateful that I do have her, because now my perception changed, that I see the women who don't have their mothers, or their mothers were killed, or so it just makes me, you have to just be a little bit more grateful be more a little bit understanding and just forgive. And again, forgiveness does not mean that you're okay with what happened, that you allowed it to yourself. It just accepts that it couldn't have been any different. It's done. And now you have the future to look forward to.
Absolutely. Any other questions, Carrie?
One last question. Are there
Okay.
any books that you would recommend checking out? I have one. My therapist gave this to me right away. As soon as like I really got back into the dating scene. And the book is called Attached. The actual book, I Googled the actual name of it. It's called Attached: The New Science of Adult Attachment and How It Can Help You Find and Keep Love. That book is really good because it helps you figure out what your attachment style really is and where it stems from. And it also tells you it helps you how to navigate love in that process, with that attachment style. So it's definitely been a great resource for me, especially with my triggers and things like that. So I recommend that one, highly do. So if anyone else has any.
Some books that I actually got, I actually bought myself survival workbooks. And I definitely would encourage women to get those. And the reason why is because they really give you some tips and things to do to really just help you get through it. One of the things is just learning how to talk about it, because you really need to learn how to just talk about it. The more that you talk about it, the more that you're letting it out and not keeping it in so much. And even just as far as like, I know for me, some of the things like it asked me to watch movies that involve domestic violence. And I remember the first time that I was trying to really just go through some of the steps that it asked me to do to help me it's really just putting yourself forward, even though that you're scared out of your mind. But you have to realize that it's not even real, but how scared that you really are. And it's not even happening. It's just, things that are pushing your trigger so that you learn how to overcome those. So I really suggest to just do self-love workbooks, anything that you can find. I know for me, it was just Amazon. I went on Amazon, and honestly, I became a book freak because I was just like, I was so fixated on like, how can I fix me? How can I fix me? How can I fix me? And it's not necessarily about fixing, but just learning those skills that we did not learn at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Gabby, you have any books?
Yes. And, I'd like how you say that, it's not about fixing you. I try to look at it as developing me. One book that I really, really like is called The Mountain Is Me. I don't have the title, or the author. I really did. The Mountain Is You, excuse me. It's available on Apple Books, wherever. But it basically really breaks down and puts in your face the mountains that you believe that other people are putting in front of you, but they're actually internal mountains. And that really helped me to kind of break down, and also gave me great ways to cope with it and how to remove those triggers and to remove those barriers and to really just kind of move forward in my healing and me as a person completely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the book that I have enjoyed the most, that I tend to go back to time and time again, is Your Body Keeps the Score. And because I'm one of those people who like to internalize things till I'm just ill. And learning my own body and my own triggers and flags in my own body as to how I am internalizing things and stopping that, and being able to focus has been really helpful for me. So I would add too that I think I saw in one of the comments, somebody said that they don't ever think they would heal. There's healing to be had. Sometimes healing for me, I like to tell people all the time, healing doesn't mean that you don't lose some pieces as you're healing, especially when I talk to people about losing a child. People don't see that visible scar. I liken it to, you lose an arm, everybody sees it. And that's going to heal over, but that arm is still gone. And there's still consequences and there's still ramifications, but there is healing to be had. And there's pieces of you that you may have to get rid of, and pieces of you that you may have to recover. but you know, it's worth it. You're worth it. You're worth the energy and the time that it can take. And don't be so hard on yourself. Definitely give yourself grace. So
I definitely just wanted to add one last thing. I know that we're talking about books, but I would really encourage you all to journal, because you are your own book. You are your own story. And I've been journaling for, since the day that I left that relationship and I was struggling, and I still have my journals. I'm down to like my 4th journal now, and I read back, and it is my own story. And now I can speak it, and I have my reference of every time that I'm going through something hard, I go back to those books to remind myself what I have gone through and how strong I am. So I really encourage you all to just write your own story, because you are a book already, just you haven't spoken about it.
absolutely. All right. Well, we thank everybody for joining our live. If you'd like to see more of our podcast live, tell us down there in the comments, because we do have the podcast. They will be up on YouTube, so you can go back and check out our other podcast as well. And if you need any help, check out our website. It's breakthesilencedv.org. You can also make a donation there to help some of our fabulous programs. And we will see you next time. Thank you for joining Through the Eyes of Survivors.
Bye.